Hi, my name is Melissa Garcia. I've taught the Business Office Technology certification class for about 2 years now. I've had the privilege of teaching many students, and through the process of teaching, I've learned so many different things about myself and also how to set my students up for success. And that's part of what I'd like to share with you today. My hope is that this will help you in your journey. Now, a little bit about my experience that helped me understand how to better meet my students where they're at. So when I first started teaching, we advertised primarily through word of mouth. I had about 25 students in my first class, and within the first couple of sessions, I learned that many of my students didn't have much exposure to computers. Now, this really stirred up in me a desire to meet students where they were at academically. And to help achieve this in future classes, I started offering a beginner level course that only covered the basic programs within Office. So those programs would be Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. So the goal is to expose students to the software to help them become familiar with what the layout looks like within the Microsoft Office platform before they start tackling more difficult assignments. I found in my own experience, but also with my students, that when you learn a new program, when you learn a new technology, you're mostly overwhelmed with where everything's located or what does this do, like if I click on this, what will it do, and if I click on that, then will it do what I need it to do. So that's what I really try and set as a foundation of my beginner level course, is getting them exposed to what these programs are. And so this beginner level course, as we went over Word and Excel and PowerPoint, that was my goal, just to set them up with this software and help them become familiar with that layout. So in order to help me determine which students would best fit in each class, either the beginner level class or the certificate class, which is more of an intermediate level, I set up an application and a test. And whichever student scored above 70%, then I admitted them into the intermediate level certificate course. If they didn't score above 70% on that test, then I encouraged them to enter the beginning class. And I gave them a little bit of an idea of what to expect in each one and why I thought maybe they'd be a better fit in the beginner level course. Okay, so what I want to share with you now is the application and test that I created for my students. And as I demo this, I want you to pay attention to four things. The first is how I've given a number of opportunities for my students to be able to choose to apply to either the beginning level course or the intermediate level course. Second is contact information and why it's important to gather contact information. So it's important for both marketing and for structuring your class. And then the third thing is expectations. So expectations as far as what your course length is going to be, your start date, your weekly meeting times, items that maybe your students might need in order to be successful. So for me, that meant computers and Microsoft Office, but for you, that might need something different. And then the fourth thing that is important is marketing based on student goals. So you need to ask those important questions for you to determine what your students' goals are. So you're going to gather that information on what their goals are, and then you're going to apply it for towards your marketing later on. Okay, so here we have the form that I created for my students, and the first part of this, I've created basically like an introductory to what my expectations are, right? And so I also use this for when maybe later on when the class gets full. Like you can see here that there's 68 people apply to this, so there's no way I was going to teach a class with 68 people. But I ended up closing it off sooner than I had anticipated. But I let them know that the class is full, but they're welcome to fill out an application, and then I would consider them for the next semester. So before I did that, I just had this bottom portion though. So I thanked them for their interest, and I gave them the expectations for the class, right? So the expectations is that it's going to be 14 weeks long, and that it's an intermediate level class, right? So that's important for them to know so that they don't come into the class thinking that I'm going to be starting from scratch, and that there are expectations for them to know certain level of understanding for Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. And if they haven't taken the prerequisite class, then they are either welcome to sign up for that. So that's the first point that I had mentioned before, right? So I'm allowing the students to choose if they want to apply for the beginner level class, and they don't have to actually fill out this application. They can just click on this link here and apply for the beginner level class. So the basic skill level is going to prepare them. It's going to serve as a prerequisite for this intermediate level class. But if some people, they may know that they have enough experience that they can just start off at the intermediate level class, which is why I give them this questionnaire, the test, right? So I use this to determine if they are going to be able to keep up with the coursework and the speed of the class, because it's 14 weeks long. And in the past, I've had this class be 16 weeks long, but I was able to get enough information in a way that was accessible to my students that it really helped them to learn at a good pace for an intermediate level class. Okay, and so I give them also the information for the class. So it's the start date. I hadn't determined at this point the times that I was going to have my class, because I was still trying to figure out what would be a good fit. So that's why I didn't put that in there. But that would be a good thing for them to know as well if I had that information at the time. All right, so contact information. Now this is important to have because I want to be able to follow up with them, right? So it's important if you want to have more students that are in your class, maybe you have low attendance or anything like that, then it's important to gather this information from people who are interested so you can follow up with them later on. And this is also important because you may need to get more information from them before they can actually apply or be registered for your class. Okay, so some of the first questions that I have in here, I'm not going to go into too much detail just for the sake of time, but these are questions that I came up with because I need to know where my students are at and as far as just the basic technology. Do they have the computer? Do they have Microsoft Office on their computers? And do they have a microphone and a camera and all the stuff that I was going to need for them to have as we were teaching online? So think through your class and think through, what would you need your students to have in order for them to be successful in your class? And you can either provide those things for them, offer for the school to provide those things for them, or make it aware to them that they are going to need those things for them to be able to do your class. All right, so the next things that I wanted to talk about are things that are important for marketing purposes. 13, 14, and 15 are for marketing, like specifically, right? So 13 is, how did you hear about this class? 14 is, why do you want to improve your Office technology skills? And 15, how do you rate your Microsoft Office skills? So why is this important for marketing? So this is going to determine who I'm drawing into my class on the intermediate level, right? So this is telling me, one, what is the most common reason that people are applying to my class, and how can I use that for marketing purposes? So in marketing, what you have is you're trying to find a problem and you're going to be the solution, right? So when I advertise for my class, I'm using this information from past classes. I have 70 responses here, right? So I have 70 data points for me to look at. And this doesn't even include the people who opted to just not fill out this application, but just to automatically go to the beginning level class. And I have similar questions for the application for my beginning level class, because I want to know how to best market to the people who would be most likely to apply to this class, right? So if their goal is to help their kiddos with homework, that wasn't a common goal. But it was a goal for some people, but it wasn't as common as to move up in their career field, right? So when I advertise for my class, then I use that. I try to focus in on how my class is going to be the solution for them moving up in their career, right? So they're going to be able to gain, X amount of skills for their applications, for their resumes, for their endeavors in their career fields, right? So that's why these are important. And then this, how do you rate your Microsoft Office skills? Also important for me to determine, okay, they are looking to take my class, even though they are pretty confident in their Microsoft Office skills. Maybe they just need a certificate to prove that they are competent, right? Or maybe the majority of people are more like kind of in the middle. That gives me a feel for who is applying to my class, right? So think through what might make sense for you in whatever class you're offering. All right, so again, I give them another opportunity right here to opt to take the prereq course. So a basic skill level is required for this course. If you do not have a basic skill level, please sign up for the mailing list for the introductory Microsoft Office course that will be offered in the future. And then I offer the link again. So most important thing in teaching that I have found, maybe not the most important, but one of the most important, is to repeat, repeat, repeat. So I have that question up here. So if you do not have the basic skill level, please fill it out. And then I'm going to have it again, Microsoft Word, before I ask them some important informations. So what I have for each section for Microsoft Word, and then I have Microsoft PowerPoint, again, the same question, and then Microsoft Excel, and again, the same question, right? So repeat, repeat, repeat. And where have I pulled these questions from? So I went through ISEV, right? So ISEV is a wealth of knowledge, right? So some of the beginner classes for Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, I went through and I grabbed some questions that I thought would be foundational for my students to have. So if they don't know these things, then I encourage them to take the beginning level class. Okay, so what did we discuss? We discussed the 4 things that I had mentioned at the beginning, right? So I allowed students to choose the beginning level. So I gave them ample opportunity to see the link for them to apply for the beginning level. So, maybe they thought they were intermediate level and they started taking the test and they were like, maybe I am actually more beginning level. Second was the contact information. Now that was important for marketing, but also for structuring the class, right? So I have that for marketing so that I can contact them later on. All right, so the third was expectations. So the course length, the start date, weekly meeting times, just items that were needed for my students to be successful in my class. And then marketing that's based on student goals. So I explained why that was important because I use that information, those data points, right, to structure how I'm going to advertise later on. So I might have some catchphrase to gather that sort of population for my class, because I know that that's what people are looking for my class. That's what people are looking to learn from my class, or are looking to gain their goal. The problem, solution. My class is a solution for their problem, right? All right, so marketing. So let's move into marketing. So whatever method that you use to market for your class, just make sure that you're gathering the information that's important for you, right? So for me, that meant a number of things related to technology, right? So that might not be what's important to you, but it also meant like learning what people's goals are. And I think that's going to be across the board. So you're going to have a problem and a solution, right? So what is their problem? How are you the solution to their problem? That's really what marketing is all about. Okay, so one thing that I've also incorporated into my class are reflections on modules. People can use it like a review, right? So this is how you can use that when you mark it later on in your class by just quoting what your students have already done on an assignment, on a reflection assignment. So let me give you an example. So from this past semester, here's something that my student said about the whole class. At the end of our class, I had them do a reflection for the whole course. So this is what the student said. Every module of this course was informative. Each module gave me new information that I was not aware of before. I am thrilled to be able to finally make pivot tables in Excel. I have to perform data sorting very frequently, and now I'll be able to do it in a matter of minutes rather than hours. Also, I had never used Publisher before, and I already used this application to make a poster. Making forms in Word and creating pivot tables in Excel were very challenging for me. Being in breakout groups with other classmates really helped me in working through these hurdles. Also, having tutoring sessions with our instructor, Melissa, helped me get past that fear of pivot tables. I expected this class to go over the basic and intermediate features of Microsoft applications, but after almost completing this class, I feel very confident that I'm proficient in most Microsoft applications. I definitely accomplished more than I set out to achieve with this class. How awesome is that? To use just this reflection, this course reflection for your marketing purposes. So whatever method you use to market for your class, make sure you're gathering important information, such as contact information, but also marketing that's gonna be based on your students' goals. For me, that meant an application and pre-screening process, and I included some questions that reflected interest in technology and certification course. But for you, that might look a little different. So follow up with your applicants as well. So use that contact information to follow up with them immediately, but also down the line when you're offering your next class. And if your class did fill up this session, try and assure those applicants that you have made them a priority for seating in the next class. Also for marketing, you can use course reflections that you've incorporated into your class as course reviews. And here's a copy of the example that I gave during my presentation. Well, hopefully this was helpful for you. And I hope that you were able to learn some really useful stuff for advertising for your class and marketing and maybe ways that you can pre-screen for your class and provide information for you as you structure your class, and also to determine what level of student that you are going to have in your class and how you can structure your classroom to be most successful for your students. Thank you for joining my session. You will automatically be awarded points for attending this session. At the end of the conference, you'll receive a digital certificate noting how many sessions you attend, and I hope to see you during our live Q&A right after this. See you soon.